2014 Environmental Advisory Council meeting. Thank you, Ann, for stepping in for Matt for taking minutes. I know how painful it can be, but thank you very much. First item of business is the review and approval of last month's minutes. And I know there are just a couple of brief changes we wanted to make on that just didn't happen before this got distributed to everybody. So we can cover them right now. Who has the changes? I know somebody has some changes. No?
I'd sent some changes to Matt, but I think they were in what already got sent.
Okay. Well, I'll tell you what. We'll take care of them offline here and redistribute these and get the updated one posted on the website, so we don't have to go over it right now. Okay. So we'll postpone the approval till later. Announcements. I have 3 announcements. The first is an exciting one that I'm going to be taking my children to. This is the National Drive Electric Week event in Devon. It's called, you know what, I'm going to give you this entire thing, Ann. It's called the National Drive Electric Week. It's in Devon. It's on Sunday, September 21st. It is at the Tesla Motor Sales and Service Center on Lancaster Avenue there in Devon. And they claim it is the largest electric vehicle and sustainable living education event in the region. They will have cars, motorcycles, and bicycles there. They are, I believe they're going to have representatives from, if not vehicles from, BMW, Porsche, McLaren, Fisker, Tesla, Ford, GM, Toyota, Mitsubishi, Bramo, and others. They ask that you register at driveelectricweek.org. That's the 21st of September. My next announcement is from the Chester County Citizens for Climate Protection group. They have a program called the EPA's Role in the President's Climate Action Plan. This is a discussion on Wednesday, September 10th at 7 o'clock. As usual, it's at the Westchester Borough Hall. They're going to have a speaker from the EPA Region 3. Her name is Megan Gould. She's the climate change coordinator, and she led the development of the Region 3 climate change strategy. And she's going to be talking about the EPA's role in implementing the President's Climate Action Plan. And also we'll touch on work being done by the Departments of Energy, Interior, and Transportation, as well as partnerships and agreements with other countries. Lastly, I have an announcement from the Clean Air Council. They have an event called Green Fest Philly, which they claim is the region's largest environmental festival and features all things sustainable in the Philadelphia area, which is funny because the first guys said it was the largest environmental festival. There's a competition here. This is on Sunday, September 7th, 10 a.m. to 4 p.m., Head House Square in Philadelphia. Over 100 eco-friendly vendors, live music, organic food and that kind of stuff, or a beer garden, yada, yada, yada. So there's a lot of good stuff there. CleanAirCouncil.com or CAC.com, CAC.org, cleanair.org. Any other announcements? Okay. Moving on to our work group reports. Radnor Green Team is our first item of business. I wanted to talk about our progress on the electric purchasing RFP. Just a few hours or days ago, Steve forwarded to us what he said was a final draft of the RFP, basically the textual part of the RFP. He said that it included the changes that people recommended from the past couple months. I haven't checked to see if they're all in there yet. They're not all in there. And also we're going to be attaching to the back of this RFP a long list of accounts, account numbers, PICO accounts and account numbers from the township, from partners that we have talked to that have agreed to join our little RFP here, which included the school and the library. And I've contacted Ben a couple times about that, and I haven't heard back from Ben yet, Ben Cooper. So I can't, I don't have that. So we don't have a complete RFP here to look at. But Sloan, you've been working with me here on this.
I just wanted to really sort of thank the school district. Leo Burnaby sent very helpful information about the school district's usage in good detail, which will be very helpful in terms of adding to the RFP. I think the hope is that we can present a much larger prospective buyer to the suppliers. So, hopefully it will result in some options that will be even more attractive than if the township had done it solo. So, thanks to the school district for that. We understand he was very clear that this is, obviously there's no commitment at this point. They are under contract through, I think, through the end of next year, so it's not something that could be done instantly. But for pricing information purposes, he thought it would be good to participate. So we're very grateful for that, and we will put it in, and hopefully we'll have an RFP that would allow suppliers to give us pricing for both the aggregate of the school district and the township, which will be a very large, total purchase amount, but also give us pricing for just the township, because the school district may decide, on their own what to do. So we would like to also get just proposals for township only, or township with the other smaller partners, that we'll be putting forward, that maybe, we have more certainty about whether they'd go forward on it. But anyway, the bottom line is very exciting to get that information, and I think it'll help the RFP tremendously.
There's one thing that I see as sort of a moving part, which is, as Josh and Sloan know, I found out from Lower Merion that Lower Merion, as well as a number of other municipalities, is participating in a purchase program that was set up by the Pennsylvania Municipal League. So there's something called the Municipal Alliance, there was a whole RFP process. The Pennsylvania Municipal League sent out an RFP with the help of a consultant, so it was very carefully thought out and drafted, and that resulted in the selection of Constellation as a provider to anybody who wanted to sort of opt into this program. And now, Constellation, it's not any particular purchase terms. It's just each municipality then who wants to take advantage of it talks to Constellation directly, and figures out how much power they're purchasing. Do they want to include renewable energy? If so, what percentage? All that kind of stuff. But the program, as a result of the RFP, does have certain benefits that were negotiated. That was the whole point of doing this whole purchasing agreement. So I don't know if it makes sense to approach Constellation the same as we approach every other buyer, because if they've already gone through the whole RFP process. In fact, one that was done with the benefit of consultants, and they're the ones that were selected. So, and another thing that's sort of different in my mind is that if the township wanted to use them as part of this whole program, the only accounts that would be eligible would be actually township-owned accounts. So as long as the school district is separate, it could not be part of our power purchase through this program, or any building like the Kreutzberg Center or whatever that is not township-owned account would not be eligible. So it's sort of apples and oranges, because for our regular RFP, we're hoping to include everybody we can include to get, bigger bang for our buck maybe. But this other program is, in my mind, a little bit different, kind of a different option. And that's why it might be helpful at some point to have the rep come and talk to us. It's very simple if we want to say, check out the numbers for us, tell us what the options would be. There's no commitment or anything like that.
Yeah, I thought it was very interesting information that you got, and encouraging that there are some sort of group efforts, alliances that are working together to try to get good terms. I personally think we might as well put Constellation in the RFP process just with everybody else who we think we should send it to. They can come back to us and say, you know what, we're going to divide and conquer in terms of only letting you bid for this set of accounts or that set of accounts. But I think we should line them all up and let them all give us their best numbers and best proposals. And it may be that a lot of the work has already been done by Constellation, and they could send us something that's a little bit off the shelf for them because they've done it recently for the Municipal Alliance. That's fine, but I would want to be able to say if they ended up being the best, I'd want to be able to say, hey, we put everybody on the level playing field, sent them all the same RFP. Here's what we got back, and we did our best to, compare them side by side. So, I definitely think it's very encouraging information coming back about Constellation. They may end up being the leader, but personally, I would think we would want to just put them, send them out an RFP just like everybody else.
And just to double check, you did say that there was no green component as part of this municipal league purchasing, correct?
It's completely up to the municipality, whatever the municipality agrees on with Constellation. I think Lower Merion does not have a renewable component. I believe that's what I was told, but others do, and it can be anything from nothing up to, I guess, 100%, just whatever the municipality chooses. So, you'd be presented with a range of options. Sloan, I understand what you're saying, and if that's what the consensus is, fine, but then, do we approach them twice? Do we approach Constellation partly to give them the same RFP we're giving everyone else, and separately to say we're interested in benefiting from the terms that were already negotiated with you by this alliance, subject to their RFP?
I see what you're saying. I would hope that if we approach them with the RFP, they would say, here's our best proposal for you for Radnor Township. And they would itemize some of those terms that you're saying are already available. If they came back without those terms from our RFP process, I think it would be a fair question to ask them, hey guys, we understand, you have these terms available. Is that correct or not? And if they say, oh, yes, we do, I would think that would be good information to, sort of have a dialogue with them about. But I don't see. I guess what I'm saying is, we could even tailor their RFP to say, please indicate whether the terms available to municipal alliance participants would be available through this proposal, to give them a little heads up that we're aware there are good terms available through the alliance. And in that case, they can say, oh yes, of course you get these 6 terms as part of our proposal. Does that make sense? Or
I think, just my opinion is, I don't feel strongly either way. Maybe just a quick phone call with them ahead of time might clear this up. If we're going to include them in the RFP, we need to know who to send it to. So when we talk to them, if we talk to them on the phone or whatever, we can ask them, would you be willing to respond to an RFP, even though we might just go with your municipal terms.
That's, yes, absolutely, we can do that. There's no reason why we can't. I guess I'm also thinking I don't know exactly what was in the RFP that was sent out by the Municipal League, but I have to assume that it was done with some expertise, and we are, we're doing it the best we can, but without the benefit of that expertise. So I don't know what we might be missing in RFP that was already negotiated in the other RFP.
Well,
So
that's
so
a good question. I mean, I wonder if, it seems like you had a good dialogue with the Alliance. I'm wondering if maybe you could ask them, to share with us their RFP. So we can check, and maybe, because when I was reading our RFP draft, which I know is still being worked up, I was worried a little bit the opposite. I was worried whether we were asking a lot of questions that would make it time-consuming for people to fill out, when we're really mostly focused on, how much does it cost and how green is it?
Yeah.
So, but I'd be fascinated if people who've done it before, who've gone through an RFP process, could share with us, hey, here's what we sent out, and we could do a little bit of a benchmark of our own, if they'd be willing to share that. I'd understand if they, oh, that's water under the bridge or whatever, but do you think that's worth asking?
certainly ask. I don't know if we'll get it or not.
Yeah, I'm sure they're, they may not want to share it, but I think it would be great if they would. Or maybe if they won't, we could say, hey, would you take a peek at ours? Give us some feedback on it, because if there's something obviously we're not asking, they might say, hey, you guys need to ask X, Y, and Z. So that would be great to keep that dialogue going if you think it's possible.
Yes, Sloan, I tend to agree with your overall feeling on this RFP. I feel like this is kind of like, even though it is an information gathering effort, it does feel like 1,000 questions.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
They might read some of these things and be like, what are they even talking about? I don't know. I maybe that's just me, but
Right. And maybe this is totally normal in the industry.
I'd love to
or-
see somebody else's power purchasing RFP.
Right,
That'd be great.
if possible.
Any other thoughts on that? I will mention that the Green Team, well, it's tentatively scheduled to meet a week from today at 8:15 a.m., I believe, here in the Township building. And Sally can't make it. Sloan and I have been going, but if anybody else wants to go to this and learn a little bit about it, and at least for this month, that'd be great. So let me know.
One nice aspect is they have done a call-in, conference call, at least at the last meeting. So if people can't actually make it physically, they can call in, which is, I think, a great opportunity.
Dan, you could do that from the train.
Yeah, no, I would do it if I can swing it at work, if I don't have something else going on. Yeah, I might go in the back.
Okay.
Have that call-in information, or does that change every time, or how's that work?
We'll have to send that out, because I think it's going to change probably. Okay, well, moving along, sustainability. Sloan?
Sorry.
You've gone dry, literally. Poor California's got no water whatsoever, and we don't even have any water sense tips. Fix those leaky faucets. All right, moving along. Open space. And any
Open space,
news?
yeah, a couple things. All right, a couple things on open space. Just to update the schedule, the process is moving along toward, we hope, a fairly rapid conclusion. There will be a public meeting here on September 9th, at which our consultant will present the final plan for open space and greenways. Then after that feedback from the public, the committee will meet one time, we hope, to wrap it up, and the anticipated date of September 22nd is to present it to the Board of Commissioners for adoption of the plan. So that's coming along pretty quickly. On a related note, The open space and greenways plan, it keeps getting referred to as open space, but the actual proposal has a lot more to do with greenways and connections, bicycle and foot connections throughout the township than with the development of open space, because we have very little open space, and the Ardrossan project is being handled separately. But there is another initiative going on that I think I should mention at this point, and there are 2 meetings coming up. There is a group that's looking comprehensively at the connections between Valley Forge and Heinz Refuge. So the goal is to get a bike connection all the way from Valley Forge to the Heinz Refuge. There would be 2 meetings looking at how Radnor can play a role in that. And this is a different group, but our Greenways plan will ultimately plug into this. So there's a workshop referred to as the West Workshop on September 4th at 7 in the evening here. And then there's the East Workshop, which is going to be held on Monday, September 15th at 7 in the evening at Bartram's Garden in Philadelphia. So to get a sense of how that connection is all working and to look a little bit at Radnor's place in it, you probably want to attend the West Workshop.
You said that the West Workshop is actually going to be here in this building?
It is at the Township Building on September 4th.
And by West Workshop, does that mean that it talks about the possible connections that are located on the west side of the trail? Possible, what does that even mean? I don't even.
I think that it's looking at Radnor, the notice that I got is not entirely clear. I think it's looking at how Radnor and Villanova fit in, and then there's also a separate discussion of the connection between Caracong Park and Cobb's Creek. But if somebody's interested, I got the notice from Radnor Conservancy. There may be more information posted on their website, but the group doesn't appear to have, the steering group doesn't have a website that I can identify.
So who's the overall person or group that's in charge of this effort, do you know?
Well, there's something, I think, called the Valley Forge to Heinz Refuge Steering Committee.
Steering committee.
Yep.
That's not on.
Big project.
Okay. So we should refer to this work group report as the Open Space and Greenways
We should.
group from
We
here on
should.
out.
Yes, for the few remaining
For the few.
discussion points.
I was going to say, I guess we're coming to the end of it. No more open space.
What is the time? What are the next steps?
Well, this is a green space plan, or green space, an open space and greenways plan for the township. The reason to have a plan is to figure out the next steps, and the consultant will be recommending next steps. I think one of the things we want is an official map in the township. But the idea is that with a plan, we know where to devote our resources, we can try to get the public behind it, and we can go out and seek funding for particular steps. So in the plan, they're going to prioritize and ballpark the cost of the various recommendations. Yeah.
So just to recap here, the West Workshop of the Valley Forge to Heinz Refuge Steering Committee bike route effort is going to be on the 4th of September.
Yes.
Which is 5 days before your final, or your open space and greenways meeting on the 9th.
Right.
So are you anticipating that the steering committees, Valley Forge to Heinz Refuge, could have any impact on our greenways plan?
They're aware of it. The people who are working in the township on the Valley Forge to Heinz Refuge plan have been talking with the consultants. They've been in touch.
Okay.
But I don't think that the proposal to the Board of Commissioners is necessarily going to heavily emphasize the role of Radnor as a connector in that greater project.
But once the Valley Forge to Heinz Refuge effort materializes in the next year, our plan is
Will
going to
fit into it somehow.
Will fit into it.
Yes, that's my understanding.
They won't be like, oh, that's entirely different than.
I've been assured not.
Okay. Okay. All right, that's good.
Speaking of the Board of Commissioners, we are we are joined by an illustrious member John, do you want to join us up here, or what would you?
No, I just.
You just came by?
Lonely, so I can't.
Well, thank you.
Thanks for
Thank
coming.
you.
In Birdtown, Ann, do you have anything from Birdtown?
I'll just mention three things.
Okay.
The last of the films in the summer series was last night. The series was very successful. There were 4 films looking at various bird-related issues. So that was a good summer program. The first fall meeting of the group, we did not meet over the summer. The first fall meeting will be September 13th. So then we'll have our agenda laid out for the year. But the third thing I want to mention is that one of the things that Birdtown does is to try to keep an eye on the bird habitats that have been put in at the various elementary schools. And Diana Miser, who leads that initiative for Birdtown, reported that the bird habitat at Wayne Elementary is in good shape, but the one at Ithan Elementary is very badly overgrown, to the extent that the native plants are likely to be killed by the invasives, and that the children at the school will not be able to see the bird feeders. So she was beginning to tackle that today, and she's asked anyone who's willing to come and help to try to connect with that effort at Ithan Elementary to reclaim their bird habitat.
Is there a way to contact her, or a time that she's doing cleanup, or is it?
She was doing it today. She didn't list any other times. I guess the thing to do would be to, I'll put her email in the minutes.
I can tell you this, that if you have a child at Ithan Elementary and you're interested in these kind of things, bird habitat, green things, you should contact the PTO, and they have a green committee on the PTO. And Diane has been in contact with that committee, so.
So maybe that makes more sense than having anybody reach out to Diana.
Yeah.
It's probably easier to
Through the PTO.
contact through the PTO.
Okay, thank you.
That's it.
That's the end of our work group reports. I was going to mention the community environmental awareness. I was going to mention that about the elementary schools. And Radnor does not have any bird habitats that I know of. It'd be nice to see if those guys have a green thumb somewhere over there. We could get them to join the team.
Can I go back to Green Team for 1 second?
Yeah.
There's a slight update on one of the sort of slightly more back burner action items, which is the lighting retrofit, chugging on along a little bit because I have been in touch with Bob Hale. We had gotten a proposal from a company 9 months ago. And of course, the timing was not right to even have it considered for budget inclusion in the budget. But Bob's going to check and make sure the proposal is even still effective, given that it was 9 months ago. But then we'll get it moved along and possibly included in budget discussions.
Okay. Thank you.
For only part of the building, I might add.
Yeah. I did mention that the Radnor Township has LED streetlights. Did I tell you guys that, right?
Not too many.
Not too many. Maybe a dozen or something like that.
That's all the replacements.
As they come in, they get replaced with.
I think this is interesting stuff. You can see them over on is that South Aberdeen?
Well, what's happened, we have an active program to replace them, but so does everybody else. So essentially, they're coming in onesie, twosies, half a dozen, and we have a lot of streetlights out in town right now. So we're trying to mitigate dark spots first. And if I was talking to Steve Norsini about this the other day, because there's quite a few out in front of Villanova, so that people that walk there at night, it's pretty dark. In some cases, we may have to go back with the old style. But the beauty of the LEDs is they come as a standard unit, and there's 2 settings. So that if you're in a residential area and people don't want the extra bright light shining in their rooms, you can put the lower setting, but if they're in a more active area, you can put them on a high setting.
John, could I ask on that? That's a great point, because I got a comment from a neighbor who was complaining about how bright the new streetlights were. Is that something that we might want to, I should reach out to Steve Norsini and say, hey, maybe we can put it on a lower setting for this one?
Exactly.
That's very good to know. Thank you.
Also, I don't know if you folks followed it, but I know you had been interested in dark sky in the past, and the ordinances for the CICD has a dark sky provision in it. So I pushed for that. I thought it was very positive.
That's fantastic.
How does it work?
CICD?
Yeah. The overlay that was done for colleges.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think that was one of our comments that we had about a year ago. That's awesome.
Do you have any color on how it works, so to speak? Is it?
What, the Dark Sky Initiative?
Well,
What,
There's standards for what they're going to have a lot of outdoor light fixtures, obviously, on a college campus, but the fixtures are designed to downlight. You don't light the whole side of buildings just for aesthetic reasons because they re-radiate the light, things like that. Yeah.
Okay. Josh, can I backtrack? I forgot when I was talking about the Birdtown initiatives to mention our progress on the Wren project, the Wren Rain Garden project. The township has designated a spot for the rain garden, so we'll be working with the township to get that spot evaluated. It's near where the police have their little shed down off the parking lot, so it will catch water that would otherwise go straight into the creek and give us the opportunity at the same time to work on some improvements to the riparian buffer that's right there. So we'll be moving ahead. We need to schedule a workshop to train people in doing rain gardens, and also to schedule the actual installation and fall planting for that rain garden.
Okay. Thank you. We're moving along. Liaison reports. We only have one liaison. Skip. Tell us.
And regrettably, the August meeting was canceled. So there's not a lot to tell.
I'm sure you're all broken up.
Well, we had like 3 meetings in July, so, it was okay to have a little time off, and we'll be catching
Okay.
up, I'm sure, shortly. But no, nothing happened in August for
Okay.
a change.
New business. We have a piece of new business I'd like to go over, and I'm glad John's here for this. So the manager, Zinkowski, has asked us to look at a proposal that they received. This is it's from an energy services company who proposed to do a level 2 energy audit for the township, and to provide some services, recurring services, all in the effort to reduce energy expenditures. And what we had to review was a 15-page slideshow that attempted to go into some detail about how it all worked, although we had about a day or so to review it, and all of us believe that it is a little bit confusing. So, and Ann made a good point that this is just one proposal. It seems to us that this kind of thing might be something best bid out. This is a $28,000 proposal. So when you bid something like this out, obviously you need to have certain kind of standards that they need to meet so it's apples and apples, right? So I don't want to get too deep into the weeds on this, because this is something that we could really just talk about forever, and I definitely don't want to do that. But having said that, we've all reviewed it. We all have serious comments and serious questions about that and the process in general. And maybe what I can do is just give you, I have a list of them, but I'm just going to give you maybe one or two of my concerns, and see if you guys can see where I'm coming from here. We have a lot of buildings in the township, but this Enercon company noted in their proposal that this building that we're sitting in is by far the biggest power consumption structure in the township. Although I must say the Public Works building uses quite a bit as well. And by the way, our streetlights use way more than this building does, just as an aside. my comment is, okay, this level 2 energy audit, and by the way, a level 2 ASHRAE is a American Society of Heating, Refrigeration, and Air Conditioning. They have a specification for a level 2 energy audit. It says exactly what you have to do to meet that specification to be called a level 2. And I'd like to know whether or not they really plan on meeting that ASHRAE level 2, or do they just throw it out here in this proposal as a, window dressing. Another big thing I'd like to know is, are they going to just do an energy audit of this building, or are they going to include all the buildings, or are they just, thinking that this one's big enough to, to get most of the meat? Because I would disagree with that. I would think that whatever kind of energy auditing we do needs to include a couple of other buildings, especially public works. So I'm not going to go into cost or anything, but you guys, we can talk about that. But those are 2 questions I had, so I'll just toss it over to you, Sally.
I think we need to look at the big picture. I mean, as we all know, one of the greenhouse gas action items was to do recommissioning. That was one of the tasks that I was assigned to. I'm working on it in theory with Marianne Donnelly and Jennifer Stefano. The reason that we haven't actually started bringing in commissioning companies to talk to us is because we haven't known which buildings we're talking about, whether the township is going to stay in this building, the whole building, if it's going to have renters, if it's going to have moved. It's all been completely up in the air. So discussion within our little group and within the Green Team, I think it's safe to say as a whole, it just seemed to make sense to kind of wait until we knew what was going on with the buildings, for one thing. As I mentioned, recommissioning would normally look at the lighting systems and the HVAC systems, and as I just mentioned, there's a little bit of potential movement on doing the lighting retrofit, at least in the sections of this building that we think will continue to be used, like the police department, and that proposal also covered the Public Works building. And I also think when we are actually ready to talk to commissioning companies, we need to figure out what are our goals. I mean, this company it seems like they kind of showed up and said, this is how we want to do, which is fine. But I think the township needs to know, what are our goals? Is the HVAC system okay overall? And are we just trying to fine tune it and make sure it's working as planned? Or or is it, clearly having problems and just needs to be, figure out what the problems are and be fixed or replaced? It just seems to me there are threshold questions before we would even start talking to different companies that offer commissioning services.
Any other comments from anybody else? Sloan, do you
Well,
want to say
I
something?
just, my reaction was, this looked like an interesting area. I didn't know whether it was something that the township was actively open to, and whether it's something, this type of service, when I read it, it looked like the core of the service is this concept of trying to reduce usage during periods of peak demand. And then if you agree to do that, you can get paid through this service, which in their presentation offsets the upfront cost and the ongoing costs. My question, I guess, as an initial matter, would be, is that the kind of relationship that the township municipal government buildings would want to have with a service provider? Or is that really not realistic for a municipal entity like Radnor? Some municipal entities may be bigger and may have more facilities that could do that sort of thing. I don't know, maybe it is something.
Just to be a little bit more clear, I think what you're suggesting is that during periods of high usage, especially in the summer peak day, in the middle of the day when all the air conditioners on, is it PJM?
PJM.
PJM or / PICO would send out a signal to people who are enrolled in this program saying, okay, we need you to turn off, X percentage of, or, X kilowatts or whatever. There would be some kind of a prescriptive effort that you had to do when they asked you to do it. Some big companies
That's
have
right.
like backup generators that they have to kick on.
Right.
Some people can just shut lights off.
Right.
But this is not necessarily a manufacturing facility. This is a little bit different, right? So
I guess that's the sort of threshold question I would have for the township. Is this could be fantastic, and it could have a lot of benefits to the whole system and the whole grid. But is this the kind of relationship that township wants to start to explore? Hallelujah if it is, but I'm just wondering, before we started getting bids and things like that, is it a good fit for the township or really?
When I looked at it, there were notes in there that, or somebody's email, I forget which, that said that the company approached the township didn't approach the company, part one. Part two, these events, the power demand events, are 2 and 3 in the afternoon, so I don't know how that meshes or doesn't mesh with township activities.
and they lasted on the average of about 3 hours each. Yeah.
And the last thing I thought of is on that last page of the PowerPoint, they're talking about how huge their company is, how many clients they have, and there's not a single particular reference that I saw. Does Upper Marion use them, or Lower Marion, or Tredyffrin, or somebody who's like us? Are they clients of the provider? And that would be that's the best reference.
Well,
we don't make refrigerators here or shoes or anything else. We
Right.
can't just turn off things.
They do say in their proposal that a typical demand response for a township building like this would be an automatic setback of thermostats. So in the summertime, the 72-degree setting would bump up to something, whatever it might be, 76, I don't know. And then once a demand response event is over, the temperature settings would go back to normal.
Well, so I agree with Sloan that, is demand response something that the township even wants to consider as part of its possible approach to this kind of, commissioning process going forward. And certainly this proposal did rely fairly heavily on that to show how there would be cost savings. Also, the proposal pretty much relies, it's sort of like a subscription kind of deal going forward. There's a monthly fee for using their software, and I think another threshold question for the township would be, do we want that kind of ongoing monitoring? It's probably a great thing. It's certainly, what big office buildings are starting to do with all their benchmarking and everything being, available all the time. But given our sort of, we have fewer buildings and not a huge budget. So is that the kind of expense that we want to incur, or are we looking more for a one-time thing of people come in and tell us how it's working, what needs to be fixed, and then maybe we have them come back in a year or two? I just don't know. I think really there are just too many threshold questions to get into. This seems very specific, this sort of proposal.
Josh, if I may, what I'm hearing you say is, and it goes back to one of your original comments, maybe the township really ought to be going out for an RFP for someone to look into all these possibilities and to determine how we should be moving forward, rather than having vendors come in trying to sell us a service, hit and miss. Integrated approaches make so much more. We've talked in the past about solar cells, PV, and never went anywhere with it. So, I think if we did it as a cohesive approach, and it's a good time to do it too, because we're getting ready to go into the budget cycle.
Does it make sense to, jump on that now, given the uncertainty about the township building? And
I think the uncertainty about this building is overstated. Quite frankly, I don't think there's more than maybe one commissioner that is willing to do it, and a lot of it has to do with economics. We paid too much for we're underwater in this building. So if we sold it, we'd still have out of pocket, and then we'd have to go somewhere else. So, that's not going to happen. Now, we are going to increase renters, and we're working through some issues about this building was built with tax-free money. Therefore, do the renters have to be tax-free organizations? There's some wrinkles like that the lawyers are looking at. And, the Carfax is looking into that very heavily. They're really pushing for us to try to monetize some of the assets. But even if something was happening with this building, I don't think that would change the need, because this building is probably, maybe 15 or 20% of our total usage.
Well, yeah, it's more than that of the building usage, but of the total usage, including the street lights and all
Right.
that, yeah, it's about 20,
Right.
maybe 20%.
Well, I mean, just speaking, with respect to the little team within the green team overall, I mean, yeah, like I said, we've been sort of waiting, unsure about the status of this building primarily, but if it seems like we should plow ahead, great. And probably it would be helpful to have more people involved and, gear up for an RFP.
Josh,
Oh,
I'm sorry. Josh, do you want action from the EAC tonight? I mean, would it be appropriate?
Could I just ask a question before we decide if there's a resolution? I just wanted to clarify. If we're talking about an RFP, would we be talking about an RFP for sort of an energy audit of various buildings? Would we be talking about an RFP for smart metering of?
Well, how do we know
buildings?
that? I mean, none of us are experts in that field, right?
Right.
So, John, are you suggesting that there's somebody out there that would know how to create an RFP for something like this?
Not necessarily that they create the RFP, but there are consultants available who will come in and look at your energy usage in total and make recommendations of things you pursue, and then they don't sell you anything else. All they're selling you is the consulting.
Right.
Then you go to someone like PECO, someone like a PV company, wind, and you do the deals then. So I would like, if you folks would be willing to do it, is put together the outline, not a detailed RFQ, for professional services, and what you would like to see covered in that, and forward that, to the commissioners.
I think there's also, not to completely make a long process longer, but I mean, there is a process for a request for information. So if the township feels like we don't know enough, we can put out an RFI and let the market tell us what is available. There could be an audit that could be at no cost, but the idea is that, whatever they find, you're going to buy their services or products. So I kind of like the idea of there's consultants out there. This isn't net new ground to do those audits, similar to, the home stuff. But there's always the option of doing a request for information and have the market tell us what our options are. I think that creates more competition as well for better pricing.
Yeah, so this is not new, as you said, Steve. This is well-trodden ground here. In fact, in the previous life, this is what I did. So I'm not interested.
So does that make you a consultant?
So what I'm thinking is, I'm not sure that we need to go out for more information. I think, though, that we need more than just our evening here together to put this to put it together. I think we need to get back and do some Googling, and some back and forth by email. I think is probably reasonable, and I can start the process off by outlining a couple of the very basic components to that. Internock included, that I haven't ever done, like demand response is not something I ever did. But then back to the energy auditing, I can speak a lot about that. So maybe I can just put together an outline, or not even an outline, just like a menu, and send it out to the group, and we can, split it up and talk about it, and then maybe next month we can decide whether we're at a point where we can and have a, put a resolution together to go out to bid or something like that. I don't even know if we need a resolution, but.
I think that it would be really helpful to have someone on township staff that we can ask questions of. Specific stuff like, are there zones in the building? If so, where? And is ongoing monitoring something that the township wants? And
I think the second one is a good one. Yeah, this is like big picture stuff, right? Big picture. I think
right, yeah,
that's exactly
the kind
right.
of threshold questions we were talking about a little bit earlier.
Yeah, I think the commissioners and Bob Z. These are the kind of people I think we need to bounce these big ideas off of. Would you be willing to accept a recurring, monitoring contract to the tune of $16,000 over a period of 4 years, which is what is in there? Or is that something that you want to try to do in-house because you have people that are capable and have the time? Or any final thoughts, John, on that? No? All right, well, I think to wrap that up, we were asked to review this proposal. We've reviewed it, and our comment is that we're not sure that, we don't think that a single contractor coming to us selling their services is the way to go for something as important as this. And we all agree that this is an important part of our energy and cost management plan here in the township, and it ought to be taken seriously, possibly by route of RFP, going out to bid kind of thing, right? All right. Thank you for that. Any other new business or old business?
Yeah, you had a nice update on the rain garden.
Just over at Cowan Park. Yeah, I've kind of ridden my bike there every couple of weeks, just kind of checking it out. And I don't know, it's kind of the exciting thing is it really seemed to have taken care of itself. I've got a caretaker, one of the neighbors over there. We spent maybe, a couple hours total sort of getting it started in the spring. Watered it, had to only water it once, did a little weeding, and it's really cool. I mean, it's probably going to start fading now as the days get shorter and so on. But I was there 3 weeks ago, and like 3 of the 4 species were totally blooming, and it was great. Really cool to see.
Is there any way to measure whether it's successful during a rain?
I think all you could do is kind of visually go and see if you're seeing water go in. One of the issues that's a little disappointing is we had talked with Public Works about putting gutters on the restroom building and directing those into the rain garden, really just as a demonstration, right? It's not going to stop the creek from flooding, obviously,
Right.
but there's a sidewalk all the way around there. The rain garden's right at the level of the sidewalk, so you'd have to go out and jackhammer out the sidewalks and then get these pipes under there, probably lower the elevation of the rain garden so those pipes could get in there. So I don't know if that's going to happen.
Would it be simpler, would it be possible to put a rain barrel there? Or-
Yeah, my thing with rain barrels is they got to be in your yard, and you've got to be committed to it, because otherwise it's just going to be full of water every time it rains. If there's no one there to drain that, it's not doing anything. So
Even with the
Breeds mosquitoes.
I know from Steve Norsini, they have had vandalism problems at that little restroom building, and
Okay.
gee, how much fun would it be to tip over a rain barrel? Right?
That would be fun. What about, you mentioned the mowing? Is there something we need to talk to?
Yeah, I can talk to Steve about that. Chanticleer says it's best to just let that stuff stand over winter, and then sort of late March, early April, to just cut it right down to the ground and let it start over. And I saw, I think it was even before Thanksgiving, the township had cut it to the ground last year.
So our
I'll talk to him
recommendation
about
would be to leave it until the spring?
Yeah, you know, it gives a little bit of wildlife cover. You know, it's kind of a little more dramatic looking in the winter when there's snow on the ground and you've got sort of this snow-covered area that's not just flat ground, so that would be.
Is that an email to Steve, do you think, or?
Yeah, I can do that.
I think it's also an interesting test for naturalization discussions that we had
Right.
good this past year about, you know, park naturalization in certain areas. We would be implementing some of those kind of no-mow approaches or reduced mowing approaches. And it's a small test, obviously, but people have to be willing to look at plants that look like they're dead over the winter, standing upright, getting laid over by heavy snows or whatever. You know, it's interesting.
Yeah, it can.
You said
can be
4 out
part
of
the
f-
education.
4 out of 5 species did well.
Well, I think we actually planted 6, and in the first week, Public Works mowed 1 species to the ground, and they never came back.
So it's not a hardy species.
You know, it's the problem with rain garden plants. They look like weeds. You know, you can't fault them too much. And then there's the species that was closest to the road, and I didn't go back and check my records yet what that was, but that was all. My wife and I were weeding it all last summer, and it was just a constant battle to keep those things above the weeds, and I think they just didn't make it. So, but I'll talk to my friend from Chanticleer and see. I mean, it's really dense now. If you go out there, I mean, you can't even like walk through it. It's that dense. So
So
it may
dense-
be a
so dense
matter
that
of just
no
going
weeds.
in and sort of digging a plant up and moving it into this other area. Now that they,
Yeah. Importantly, it's so dense that there's no room for weeds to grow.
Yeah. There's, you know, if you look in there are weeds, but nothing's more than like 6 inches high.
And the rest of it is 5 to 6
Oh,
feet
yeah,
high. I mean, it's
yeah.
tall, yeah.
Yeah.
It looks great. Looks great. Any other old business?
A little bit of new business, if there's no, a little bit of new business. The Conservancy reached out and is interested in some sort of online tool about recycling in Radnor. Maybe a sort of a one-stop shop to find out what the rules and the schedules and what's acceptable and all that. It's something that we've actually kicked around a little bit here. So I thought that was a great idea. We could work something up for the Green page and maybe for the Conservancy page, their website. So interested, I thought it was a good idea. Josh, you sort of had that idea as well.
In the past? Or?
Yeah, in
Yeah.
the past.
The only thing I've ever done is go to Peggy Hagan. I believe she's still involved with, no, she's not. But at the time, Peggy showed me a picture or a diagram that went out in the newsletters, the Township newsletters, and I think it was also available on the website to assist homeowners to know what is recyclable and what is not. And frankly, it needed to be updated. It was missing some things, and she and I worked on it, but I think that never went anywhere. So,
Well, the Public Works page on the website has the rules and everything and what's recyclable and what's not. It's just that it's not easy to, you have to think, oh, which department does this? So you probably could use an upfront link. And photographs are always good. Yeah, people do much better with photographs.
Right. Well, maybe we could undertake to look at that, what's already out there, think about whether it's user-friendly, whether it might need to live in multiple places, and if we have suggestions for making it, as effective as possible.
Didn't we watch a presentation, or someone from staff told us all about the value of different, in other words, when we get the yard waste, that's a positive because it doesn't go to the dump. The recycling has a certain value. So that reduces the cost of dumping the classic regular trash. I mean, in the back of my head, in the last 2 years,
Right.
we had a very,
There have been presentations.
like
and
45 minutes here.
There's some interesting facts, some of the trash gets really recycled, even if it's not in the stream, it gets recycled through, I think it's Constellation will create power with it. So I think there's some cool facts and aspects of the program that could be highlighted beyond just the, here's what you can recycle, here's what you can't. So
Well,
I think. what makes-
Sharon, right?
Sharon.
Sharon. So let's put her onto our website and see what she what she thinks is missing. I
Yeah.
mean, she feels like there's a need. I'm just not sure she's aware of, what the township's already done in terms of trying to educate people who are throwing out their waste. See what she says. See if she can outline what she thinks is this online tool.
Yeah.
If it's there on the Public Works, you can just hyperlink, just a link to that page, to help make it easier to find.
Yeah, or maybe that's not what she was thinking.
Right. All right. Well, I'll reach out to her.
Okay.
And
She was also asking about another subject.
She has somebody who is interested in helping with the green power purchasing
No, okay.
project. So she's going to send us that person, and we can keep them posted as we move forward with an RFP and other aspects of it.
Okay.
One other thing in the way of new business, it's sort of an announcement. There is now a Sustainable Pennsylvania program, kind of like a I don't know if rating system is the right word, but a way for municipalities to get recognition for achieving points for certain numbers of environmentally friendly steps they take, along the lines of Sustainable New Jersey, which has been a really good program, and Sustainable Pittsburgh was sort of the first step here in Pennsylvania. So now it's gone statewide, and it might be something that we want to look into and consider jumping on board and racking up points. And it's probably a good source of information anyway and ideas.
I think you may have already sent that out to us. But can you send us all the link again?
Yes.
Thank you. Any other new business?
I had one question for John while you're here. You were talking about the LED streetlight replacement, and I drew a off-the-cuff conclusion, it may be wrong, that there's a shortage of these parts or fixtures.
That's my understanding, that the manufacturers can't keep up with the demand. I mean, they're big. It's a significant savings. And it's low-hanging fruit, if you will. A township it can be very positive for the township.
Yeah.
From an optics point of view, rather than not just the money savings point of view.
But
I mean,
how
we saw
long
the
is-
same thing with the streetlights
Yeah.
on LEDs, the traffic signals.
How long has there been a shortage, I guess, would be my question, too.
Probably only a couple months that I'm aware of. It could be longer. I had heard it from Steve because I'm constantly on their backs about streetlights. And everybody's got to have their thing.
I mean, because,
And-
at the consumer level, there's more choices than ever,
Right.
and all sorts of inventory out there, but,
But it's not just a bulb.
yeah.
It's a head that replaces the existing head, so there's minimal expense, and then all the components in there.
I brought this up before, John. It's great to save the electricity, but we don't save any money
Nope.
until we tell PECO that we've replaced those heads. So it's important that somebody, I thought it was the contractor that wins the bid every
Well,
2 years.
Higgins is our contractor.
So I thought that Higgins was in charge of maintaining that spreadsheet. It's a giant Excel spreadsheet of 1,400 fixtures.
Right.
And each fixture has an identifier and it has exactly the wattage that it consumes. So when we replace a 400 watter with a 100 watter, we need to make sure that that list gets updated and eventually that PECO gets the updated list so that our bill goes down. Just
I'll check with Leah on that. If anybody would know, she would.
Any other new or old business?
I apologize for my lateness. Did we talk about the green purchasing RFP before? Okay.
And there being no public comment, meeting is adjourned.